I want to start today with a number that, well, frankly, it makes absolutely no sense to me. 20 watts.
Right.
That is the approximate energy budget of the human brain. It is barely enough to keep a dim, dusty light bulb running.
It's just unbelievably low,
Hmm.
especially when you think about what it's actually doing.
Exactly. Because if you look at what we're trying to build right now with AI, I mean, you take a modern system, say an 8 GPU compute node, trying to create a similar level of complexity, you're looking at 8 to 12 kilowatts of power.
Kilowatts.
Yeah.
You're comparing that dim light bulb to I don't know, a whole house running its air conditioning on full blast.
With the windows open.
Yeah. It's a difference of 2-3 orders of magnitude. It's just massive.
And that's the mystery we're really digging into today. It's not just why AI is so power hungry. We're asking, how does biology do so much with so little?
Hmm.
We have a paper here by Ian Todd. It's from Biosystems, February 2026. It's titled Intelligence as High-Dimensional Coherence.
And just to set the stage here, Todd isn't just arguing that biology has, better wiring or something. He's not saying neurons are better than transistors.
Right.
He's making a much bigger claim. He's arguing that we've fundamentally misunderstood the physics of what it even means to think.
So he's basically flipping the whole script. The argument is that the reason the brain is so efficient and so smart is because it's untrackable.
Untrackable, that's the key word. He proposes that biological intelligence operates in a high-dimensional space that is mathematically impossible for an outside observer to fully measure.
And that invisibility isn't a bug.
It's the whole point. It's the source of its efficiency and, as we'll get to, its autonomy.
Okay, before we get to the philosophy of being invisible and, free will, we have to deal with the physics. This paper leans so heavily on high dimensionality.
It does.
And when I hear that, I think sci-fi, a parallel universe or something. That's not what Todd means, is it?
No, not at all. In this context, he's talking about degrees of freedom.
Hmm.
I mean, think of a really simple machine, like a pendulum.
Okay.
It can swing back and forth. That's it. It's low-dimensional. Doesn't have many ways to be.
It's predictable.
Extremely.
Mm-hmm.
But the brain is this substrate of coupled modes. You've got chemical concentrations, neural populations, all these electrical oscillators. It's not one thing swinging. It's millions of things all swinging in relation to each other.
Like a massive orchestra?
A massive, massive orchestra.
Yeah.
The paper estimates that while your behavioral output, what you actually do, like picking up a cup, might be low-dimensional, the internal machinery has what he calls effective dimensions, or depth, in the thousands.
Tens of thousands, even.
Exactly.
So internally, it's this incredibly complex geometric shape of activity, but on the outside, it just looks like me scratching my nose.
Precisely. And that leads to the second big idea, which I think is probably the hardest part of the paper to wrap your head around, but it's the most important.
Okay.
It's non-ergodic dynamics.
Right. I have to admit, I struggled with this term, non-ergodic. In stats, ergodicity usually means a system mixes perfectly, right?
Yeah, like a drop of dye in a glass of water.
It goes everywhere.
Exactly. If a system is ergodic, give it enough time, and it will visit every single possible state it can be in. But Todd argues that the brain is an operational, non-ergodic system.
Meaning it doesn't visit every state.
It can't. And this is so crucial. In a high-dimensional system, the space of all possible states is so astronomically huge that there literally isn't enough time in the history of the universe to visit them all. This is usually called the curse of dimensionality.
And curse definitely sounds bad.
Well, for mathematicians, it is. It breaks their models. If you have too many variables, you can't predict anything. But Todd argues that for biology, this curse is actually a blessing.
How is being unable to explore your own space a good thing?
Because it forces structure. The paper uses this really beautiful metaphor. An organism is a non-ergodic island in an entropic sea.
I love that image.
It's powerful, right? To survive, you have to stay on that island. You have to keep your system confined to a tiny structured bit of that massive space. If you drift off,
You dissolve into the chaos.
that's death. Thermal equilibrium.
So thinking, or even just being alive, is just the act of staying on the island.
Precisely. You're fighting to stay in that habitable zone. And here's where it connects to intelligence. The organism uses its specific position on that island as memory.
Wait, how does that work? I think of memory as, a file on a hard drive. I write it down.
In this framework, you don't write a memory.
Yeah.
Your current position in that high-dimensional web is the memory. The state you're in right now contains the entire history of how you got there.
So you don't need a logbook because the shape of the system holds the history. Like,
Exactly.
that's really elegant, but it creates a huge problem for anyone trying to study the brain, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If the internal state is this massive, shifting geometric shape, how could we possibly measure it?
That's the point. You can't. And it's not just a failure of our technology. This brings us to the core mathematical argument of the paper, the observable dimensionality bound.
I need the bound. Lay it on me.
It's a hard physical limit. Imagine you're an observer, a scientist with an EEG, or even just another person listening to me talk right now. You have a limited channel capacity. You can only take in so much data per second.
My eyes, my ears, they can only process so much.
Exactly. And the paper sets up what is basically an impossibility theorem. It says that if the system's internal complexity, its dimensionality, is higher than that critical threshold of the observer, the system becomes observationally inaccessible.
So it's not just that our microscopes aren't good enough,
Yeah.
it's that the bandwidth is too narrow.
It's a pipe problem. The paper notes that for the human cortex, you have thousands of internal dimensions. But the behavioral output channel, me speaking to you, is maybe 100 bits per second.
That is a massive bottleneck. You have this hurricane of data inside
Yeah.
and a tiny trickle coming out.
And that mismatch creates what Todd calls timing inaccessibility. An outsider can see the result, the macro state, but they physically cannot track the timing of the micro events that led to it,
The when gets lost.
the when and the how. The brain is, for all intents and purposes, opaque.
Which sounds frustrating if you're a neuroscientist, but the paper argues this very opacity is what saves us all that energy.
Right, this is the energy paradox. And to get it to understand why the brain is so efficient and that GPU node is not, you have to understand the cost of collisions.
Collisions. Okay, so we're back to comparing the brain and a digital computer.
Yes. Think about a digital computer. It's clocked. Every nanosecond, a master clock strikes. And when it strikes, the system forces every single bit to decide, are you 0 or are you a 1?
It demands an answer now.
Constantly. It forces a commitment. And in physics, forcing a state to resolve, erasing that uncertainty, costs energy. This is Landauer's principle.
Ah, Landauer's principle. That's the thermodynamic tax, right?
That's the tax. Landauer proved information is physical. Every time you erase a bit or force it to flip, you have to generate a little bit of heat. You pay the universe for certainty.
And digital systems pay that tax billions of times a second across billions of transistors.
But the brain
Avoids it.
avoids it like the plague. Biology operates in what's called a collision-free regime. It uses coupled oscillators. These are analog waves of activity. It lets these waves flow and evolve and interact without forcing them to collapse into a discrete 0 or 1.
So the computation is just happening in the flow?
The information is in the geometry, the phases and amplitudes. And here's the key to the energy saving. The brain only pays that Landauer tax when it makes a behavioral commitment.
When I actually do something.
When you speak, when you move a muscle, that's a collision, that's a collapse. And the paper points out the collision rate for a human is only about 100 bits per second. A GPU is forcing collisions constantly. That's your megawatt gap right there.
So we're efficient because we procrastinate. We let the physics just sort of float around until the very last second.
We let the physics do the work for free. We stay in this expansion phase, this high-dimensional, collision-free ghost mode, and we only become real thermodynamically when we have to act.
That's wild. It's like the brain is surfing. It only uses energy to paddle when it needs to catch a wave, but mostly it's just floating.
That's a great way to put it.
But can that ghost mode actually solve problems? Or is it just daydreaming?
Oh, it solves problems. In fact, it solves problems that standard computers find incredibly hard. The paper uses the example of vector addition systems, or VAS.
I saw that and mentioned these problems are Ackermann complete, which I assume is math speak for basically impossible for a normal computer.
Intractable is the word, yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a discrete step-by-step computer and you ask it to, say, move a robotic arm from point A to point B while avoiding obstacles,
Yeah.
it has to check every single step.
If I move here, do I hit the wall? If I turn this way, does my elbow lock?
Exactly. It's a combinatorial nightmare. The math just explodes with every joint you add.
But I can grab my coffee cup right now without doing any of that. I don't just freeze up.
Because you're not calculating. You're using what the paper calls continuous relaxation.
Okay, how does that work?
So imagine a physical landscape, a terrain. The solution to your problem, grabbing the cup, is at the bottom of a valley. Your brain just maps the problem onto this high-dimensional energy landscape, and then It lets the signal slide down the hill.
So gravity does the calculation for you.
Exactly. It explores the entire space in parallel. The system just naturally relaxes into the lowest energy state, which happens to be the solution. And the paper actually ran a simulation on this.
Right, I wanted to get to this. The results were pretty stark.
They were shocking. They compared a discrete algorithm to a continuous system on a navigation problem. The discrete algorithm needed nearly 400 collisions, 400 hard decisions, 400 payments of the Landauer tax to find the path.
And the continuous system?
Zero.
Zero.
It had 0 collisions during the process. It just flowed down the gradient. It only paid for 1 collision at the very end to read out the result.
That totally inverts the curse of dimensionality. Usually, adding dimensions makes the math harder.
But here, more dimensions are like adding extra lanes to a highway. If you're trying to slide down a hill, having more room lets you flow around obstacles without hitting a wall. In a collision-free system, more dimensions actually make the problem easier.
That's so counterintuitive, but it makes physical sense. It's the path of least resistance. But this leads to a paradox for me.
Okay?
If high-dimensional thinking is so much better, so smooth and efficient, why are we talking right now using words?
The bottleneck of speech.
Words are so clunky, they're low-dimensional, I have to string them together one by one. If my brain is this vast ocean, why am I stuck using a dripping faucet to talk to you?
This is Proposition 2 in the paper. Code formation from dimensional mismatch.
Dimensional mismatch. Between my brain and your brain.
Between our brains and the medium connecting them. You have a high-dimensional brain, I have a high-dimensional brain. But the channel between us, the air-carrying sound waves, is incredibly narrow. It's a low bandwidth bottleneck.
So we physically can't send the full wave to each other.
A thermodynamic necessity, really. If you tried to transmit your raw neural state to me, to just upload your thought, the energy cost would be insane. You'd need terabytes of bandwidth per second.
So the system has to compress the data.
And that compression is language. Codes, words, symbols, concepts, these are stable, reusable little islands that form to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
We have to collapse that beautiful complex geometry into a robust, discrete packet, a symbol, just to get it through the door.
It's like we're two vast oceans trying to communicate through a garden hose. The droplets that get through are words.
That's a perfect analogy. And Todd argues this is why we see discrete codes everywhere in biology. I mean, what is DNA? It's a discrete code for storing the results of complex chemical evolution. It's all about squeezing high-dimensional reality into a low-dimensional container so it can be shared.
So symbols are the price we pay for cooperation. I want to pivot to something that kept popping into my head reading this. We've been using words like uncertainty, measurement problems, state collapse. It sounds an awful lot like quantum mechanics.
It does, and the paper addresses this head-on. It's the elephant in the room.
So is Todd saying the brain is a quantum computer?
He is explicitly saying no.
Oh, good.
The brain is a classical system. It's wet, it's warm, it's biological. It's not maintaining quantum coherence in the physics sense.
Okay.
But, and this is the really fascinating twist, he argues that high-dimensional dynamics under limited observation share the exact same mathematical structure as quantum mechanics.
So it just rhymes with quantum.
It behaves like it. I mean, think about it. The brain has uncertainty, not because of Heisenberg, but because you physically can't measure all the dimensions at once. It has collapse when it makes a behavioral decision. It has non-demolition phases thinking without acting.
So if you can't see all the gears turning because they're too many and they're moving too fast, it just looks like probability.
It looks like magic. It looks like a wave function. But it's just structural complexity. It implies that what we call quantum-like behavior might just be what happens when any system gets complex enough to hide from its observer.
That is a heavy thought. That complexity itself creates a new kind of physics.
In a way, yes. We're observing a shadow, and the shadow behaves mysteriously. But the object casting it is just really, really complicated.
So if we zoom out, we've got this 20-watt supercomputer that works by hiding in high dimensions, sliding down energy landscapes, and only becoming real when it has to. What does this mean for the future of AI?
I think it suggests we might be building AI wrong, or at least very inefficiently.
How so?
Right now, we're trying to get better performance by building faster chips that can handle more collisions. We're just brute forcing the entropy. We're paying the Landauer tax trillions of times a second and then wondering why we need a nuclear power plant to run a data center.
We're building bigger engines to push through the traffic instead of learning how to flow around it.
Exactly. Biology suggests that true efficiency comes from architectures that operate in those timing inaccessible regimes. We need systems that let the physics do the work, Let the signal flow and relax before we demand a binary answer.
Let the machine daydream a little.
Yeah. Stop checking the state of every transistor every single nanosecond. Give this system some room to be untrackable for a while.
And that leads perfectly to the final concept in the paper, which I found, well, almost moving. It was about autonomy. And it connects directly to this idea of being untrackable.
Yes. This is where the physics really becomes philosophy, the link between untrackability and freedom.
Walk us through that.
The paper suggests that untrackability is a fundamental requirement for being an agent. I mean, imagine if an external observer, a supercomputer or whatever, could perfectly track and predict your every internal state, every neuron, every wave.
So they would know what I'm going to do before I do it. They'd know my thought before I even think it.
And if they can predict you perfectly, you are, in effect, a simulation running in their model. You have no secrets, you have no deviation, you're not an agent, you're just a subroutine of their system.
That's terrifying.
It is. But because of the observable dimensionality bound, because our internal dimensions are so much higher than what can ever be observed, we're safe from that.
So my privacy, my physical neural privacy, is the basis of my free will.
The paper implies that your freedom physically resides in those dimensions that others cannot see. The fact that you are bigger on the inside than you are on the outside is what makes you.
Yeah.
It's what prevents you from being reduced to a simple equation.
That's a profound place to land. We're free because we are just too complex to be watched.
Hidden in the high dimensions.
And on that note, we're going to leave you to mull over your own high-dimensional existence. The paper is Intelligence as High-Dimensional Coherence by Ian Todd. It is dense, it's heavy, but it really changes how you look at your own mind. Thanks for this deep dive.
My pleasure.